Hi, I'm Melissa Meeks. This video debriefs the peer learning activity in Eli Review. You completed a small bit of writing on Monday. You gave feedback on Tuesday. Today, we're processing and debriefing feedback. In this step, I'm going to use whole class feedback to encourage revision. Tomorrow, you'll build your own revision plan. In a course, we would repeat these steps, building from where we ended or starting a new project. The work we're doing today, debriefing, is important because, as Dylan William explains in his article, The Secret of Effective Feedback from ASCD, the only important thing about feedback is what students do with it. In debriefing, my goal as the instructor is to inspire revision so that no matter what personal feedback you got from your peers, you will be exposed to trends and models that challenge you to improve your draft. Your revision begins by rereading the assignment guidelines. In your haste to compose a draft, it's easy to miss critical details. In this case, the writing task was simply to compose a syllabus blurb or talking points that convince students of the value of peer learning. Now, let's look at the review task. How did you feel when you saw these very specific, unannounced criteria? In previous workshops, I've gotten emails from confused and angry participants. This is an intentional teaching moment. I want you to remember that discomfort when you design peer learning activities. Surprise criteria compromise trust. Don't do that to your students. Be explicit about the criteria in the writing task. In this review, I also wanted participants to have a durable list of options for pitching peer learning to their students. The first set of options is about how you might connect peer learning with course goals, your own pedagogy, or students' academic and personal goals. The second set covers the pedagogical principles in the readings in order to see if writers took up any of these ideas. The third set acknowledges that students bring many negative experiences to peer learning. Raising their expectations takes intentional conversation and practice. They'll believe you when they have a better experience. Overall, the review task focuses reviewers' attention when giving feedback. This focused feedback comes back like survey data. Before we work with the numbers, remember this image from the videos you watched on Monday? This is a little dancer who looks to the side and sees another little dancer doing the right move, so she makes adjustments. In Eli, we are using this data to encourage the same kind of self-reflection through peer comparison. Your Feedback Received report itemizes your feedback. In these checklists, reviewers ticked the box to say, "Yes, I see that feature," or left it blank to say, "No, I don't see that feature." The percentages indicate the rate of agreement among reviewers. 50%, for example, is not an assessment of effectiveness, not a grade. It means one of your reviewers thought you covered that criteria and the other did not. You can decide which reviewer to believe. For students, getting a split vote can be very disconcerting, so try to make groups of 4 or 5 students to be sure there is a tiebreaker. That's another teachable moment in this workshop. Bigger groups make the feedback more believable. The class average tells you how many reviewers notice that criteria in all the drafts. These are the overall trends, so you can decide how much you want to be like everyone else. Trends also indicate to me which ideas this group might be struggling with. In the first checklist, the only requirement of the writing assignment was that the blurbs needed to explain why peer learning has value to students as learners or as future professionals. If you didn't get 100% agreement on that item, that's your top revision priority. You might also want to consider connecting peer learning to course or department goals and to tell your students why it matters to you. Even if you don't tell them, they'll figure it out by the ways that you interact with peer learning in the course. In the second checklist, the most popular idea from the readings related to the notion of using Eli to help students build drafts in small bits, so that they practice before they turn in a full draft. Other popular ideas related to the definition of helpful feedback, and the role of instructors in coaching. I want to call attention to the second item about cognitive load because even if it's something you never tell your students, I hope it's an idea that animates the way you design courses. Giving feedback is the hardest thing we ask students to do. They have to read a messy draft, apply criteria they may not fully understand, and then communicate their feedback to a peer, someone they might consider much better or much worse than they are. So we can help all students be successful at a hard task by being very specific and very focused. This last checklist acknowledges that students bring plenty of emotional baggage to peer learning, and you may not want to cover that in your syllabus blurb. You may not want to cover it on your first day of peer learning, but all of these issues are going to surface. What I hope you can do with this list is come back to it and think about how you're going to respond to a student who expresses self-doubt, or who refuses to do peer feedback, or who does it but does it poorly. Being ready to engage in those conversations with students will help you create a helpful peer learning environment. In the scaled response items, you'll get both a rating and a comment if the reviewer included it. At the class level, 3 drafts bubbled up to the top as peer-nominated exemplars. I'm going to use them to model, which means I'm going to talk you through the strengths of these drafts so that you can consider imitating them as you revise your own. Here's the first model. You might want to pause the video and read the draft. This blurb opens by announcing how many final products students will produce. Then it explains the concept of small bits. Here, the metaphor is of a scaffold, and students are encouraged to think of it in terms of construction, of building a framework for their final drafts. Next, the instructor explains that feedback has certain qualities that will help the scaffold be useful, and there's a distinction between feedback and simple editing. Something we'll see in another draft as well. The blurb wraps up with the notion that giving feedback will help writers become good leaders. So this is a nice tight summary that begins with small bits, includes the qualities of helpful feedback, and wraps up with the leadership skills. Here's Model 2. The opening paragraph begins by helping students understand that revision is not a flaw. Revision is just how work gets done, even in the governmental sector. The paragraph shifts from purpose to process by describing how many projects and that students will have one partner for each activity. That's highly risky, especially in pandemic. What if the reviewer can't do their best work or can't do it on time? So I encourage bigger peer review groups, not only to make the feedback more believable, as I mentioned before, but also because we can't count on everybody to have their best effort in the week. Making the groups larger kind of builds in some resiliency. This first paragraph wraps up with 2 quick whys. One is that giving feedback will help you turn back to your own work with more insight, and the second is that it transfers beyond the campus environment. This next paragraph gets into some of the mechanics of using Eli within D2L, which is possible at some campuses but not all campuses, so contact me if you're unsure about integration at your institution. The more important part of this paragraph is making a distinction between peer feedback and peer editing, where editing means grammatical corrections and feedback means these substantive issues that affect purpose, audience, and goals. The last part of this paragraph explains the instructor's role in coaching peer feedback. First of all, by including describe, evaluate, suggest in the prompt for comments, and then secondly by endorsing the high quality feedback, something you'll see me do in this workshop as well. This final paragraph wraps up by stating that peer feedback is crucial to learning and therefore crucial to the grade. There's no specifics like 10% or 20 points. The statement is here that students' work, their contributions as a peer reviewer will be part of how their grade is calculated. The last blurb I'm going to cover offers several reasons for the value of peer learning, and the opening statement is a nice summary. Students learn from each other, and they improve their own skills through the feedback that they receive and by giving others feedback. Our team explains these benefits with a phrase. This is Bill Hart Davidson's summary of the benefits of being a helpful reviewer. He calls it giver's gain. And we have this little Dr. Seuss poem. Whatever you can read, you can imitate. And whatever you detect, you are likely to be able to correct. If you can explain it, you're likely to be able to retain it. And whatever you suggest, you also can try. The empirical research on giver's gain is absolutely clear. The students who give the best feedback make the most revisions to their own work. So you can use giver's gain, or you might look at some of the other ideas covered by this third model. In the first paragraph, it's critical thinking. The idea that as students read, they notice things, they name what they're noticing, and then they discuss it. In the second part, it's application. So some concept they've covered in class suddenly becomes real to them. Then the third bullet point here is that students can see their growth over time. This is only true if students get to practice peer learning. If they're doing 1 or 2 reviews in a 16-week term, you're not going to see growth. The last paragraph in this model mentions that peer learning helps establish community, provide peer support, and communicate course expectations. At the end of fall 2020, I was surprised that several longtime Eli users and a couple of new ones emailed me after they got their course evaluations to say that the overall benefit of Eli, according to their students, was that they felt closer to their peers. The habit of giving each other feedback on work in progress in a formative and supportive way helps students feel closer to each other during a disconnected term. I hope that's what you and your students experience. You've seen your peer feedback on checklists and ratings. Now, we are going to work through the comments you received. The review task asks reviewers to compose 2 comments total. Each comment needs to describe, evaluate, suggest. This 3-part strategy, developed by Eli co-founder Dr. Bill Hart Davidson from Michigan State University, makes sure that comments have enough information to persuade writers to revise. Moreover, these elaborated comments help reviewers practice naming problems and solutions, which is the kind of thinking that transfers beyond this assignment. As you read your comments, use the helpfulness stars to rate each comment. Give a star for each yes. Does the comment describe your writing so that you know what readers understand from it? Does this comment help you evaluate your progress toward the assignment goals? Does the comment offer a specific suggestion that you can follow when you revise? The 4th star is the kindness star. Does this comment show particular respect for you and your work? It's really got to go the extra mile to earn the 4th star. The 5th star is for those comments that are transformative. It should be used rarely, only for those comments that help you radically rethink your work. Most comments should get 3 stars. 3-star comments have all the information necessary for writers to revise. Let's apply the helpfulness ratings to a comment that I've endorsed. This comment begins with a generic description. These points are about why peer review is important. Then it moves to evaluation. Here's the type of information I was expecting. The suggestion part of this comment is phrased as a question, and it does such a good job because it tells the writer what the purpose is: assuage students' concerns. So this is definitely a 3-star comment because it has describe, evaluate, suggest. The writer has also given it the kindness star and the transformation star, and that's always at the writer's discretion. This helpfulness rating flows back to the reviewer and to the instructor. In a low-stakes way, writers can use the helpfulness ratings to say, I'm getting what I need to revise, or not. Instructors can use that information to coach particular reviewers who are struggling to give helpful feedback. The second decision you make as you read through your comments is which ones are you going to add to your revision plan. You have a button over to the right that says Add to Revision Plan. When you click it, you choose which writing task this comment applies to, and a copy of the comment is going to be moved to that revision plan. In the box, you can add a note for yourself and your instructor about how you plan to use this feedback. Then, you can either return to the review task to get more comments, or you can go straight to the plan. Let's return to the review task and recap. Eli's features help writers work through a decision-making process around each comment. How helpful was this comment to me? And do I want to add it to my plan? These easy follow-through actions hold writers accountable for using peer feedback. Let me show you what your revision plan looks like. When you go to the dashboard, you can click on the task. Any comments you've added from your review will appear, and you can drag and drop them into priority order, from most to least important. You can also update any notes you've made about how you are going to apply the feedback when you revise. Once you are happy with your list of comments, you can use the additional note space to put any ideas you want to remember from the checklist, from the models shared in this debriefing video, or from the drafts you read and gave feedback to. In your note, you can also communicate directly with me about your revisions and your questions. When you are done, share your revision plan. I'll reply to your revision plan by Friday. As an instructor, you don't have to assign revision plans or respond to students individually. If you choose to do so, your intervention can be light because students will have done the heavy lifting in identifying their revision goals. In your dashboard, you will also see the last task for the week, a revision of your original draft. I don't actually expect you to revise, but I want you to see how Eli takes your original task and makes it available to you for revision. This feature makes it quick and easy for students to revise in the app. This concludes the debriefing video. I hope it was helpful for giving you a sense of how Eli works. In Eli, students get the information they need to revise from the review task itself, whole class feedback, and their personal peer feedback.